The gladiators weren't the most dangerous thing in the arena. The crowd was. 50,000 Romans didn't come to watch a fair fight. They came to watch men die. And when the crowd wanted blood, they got it. These are the worst gladiator deaths ever recorded. Case 1. Arbelas, Rome. Circa 1st century AD. Arbelas was a retiarius, a net fighter, one of the most skilled in the empire. His weapon of choice was simple: a weighted net to trap his opponent and a trident to finish them off. For years, this combination had kept him alive. But on this day, he faced a secutor, a heavily armored gladiator specifically designed to counter his fighting style. The match started well. Arbelas threw his net, but the secutor dodged. He threw again. Missed. Now he was defenseless. The secutor closed the distance. Arbelas tried to use his trident as a spear, but the armor deflected every strike. Within seconds, he was on the ground. The secutor stood over him, sword raised, waiting. This was the moment that mattered. Arbelas looked up, not at his opponent, but at the emperor's box. 50,000 voices screamed around him. His fate wasn't in the hands of the man holding the sword. It was in the hands of the crowd. The emperor raised his fist, thumb pointed down. Arbelas knew what that meant. He was still looking at the emperor when the blade touched his throat. He felt the cold metal for exactly 2 seconds before it cut through. The crowd cheered. The emperor ordered the match stopped. Too late. Some fought back. It didn't matter. Case 2. Crixus. Lucania, Italy. 72 BC. Crixus was never supposed to be a gladiator. He was a Gallic warrior, captured in battle and sold into slavery. The Romans trained him to kill for entertainment, and he became one of the best. But Crixus didn't want to die in an arena. He wanted to die free. So when a gladiator named Spartacus started a rebellion, Crixus was the first to join. Together, they built an army of 70,000 escaped slaves. For 2 years, they defeated every Roman legion sent against them. But Crixus made a fatal mistake. He split from Spartacus's main force, taking 30,000 men south. He believed they could raid the wealthy Roman estates and escape Italy by sea. He was wrong. The Roman general Gellius was waiting for him. The ambush came at dawn. Crixus's men were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The legions surrounded them on 3 sides. Crixus fought for hours. He watched his army being slaughtered around him, men he had trained, men he had promised freedom. He knew the rebellion was over, but he refused to surrender. The Romans found his body among thousands of others. They couldn't even identify him at first. He had taken so many wounds that his face was unrecognizable. His body was never recovered, but not everyone died fighting. Case 3. Ignatius of Antioch, Rome, 108 AD. Ignatius wasn't a gladiator, he was a Christian bishop, and that made him an enemy of the Roman Empire. When Emperor Trajan ordered the persecution of Christians, Ignatius was one of the first arrested. His crime, refusing to worship Roman gods. The sentence, death by wild beasts. They transported him across the Mediterranean in chains. The journey took months. Ignatius knew exactly what awaited him at the end. On the day of his execution, 50,000 Romans filled the Colosseum. They hadn't come to see justice. They had come to see a man torn apart. Ignatius walked into the arena alone. No weapons, no armor, no chance. The gates opened. 2 lions emerged from the darkness. The crowd roared louder than the animals. Ignatius didn't run. He stood still as the lions circled him. Some accounts say he spread his arms, welcoming death. The first lion struck from behind. Its jaws clamped around his shoulder and dragged him to the ground. He was still conscious when the second lion began feeding. The crowd watched for approximately 45 seconds before his body stopped moving. When it was over, the Romans collected what remained for disposal. His bones were never found. Notice a pattern? In every case, the victim wasn't killed by skill. They weren't killed by strength. They were killed by demand. The crowd decided who lived and who died. But one man tried to end it all. Case 4. Telemachus, Rome, January 1st, 404 AD. Telemachus was a monk from the Eastern Empire. He had traveled to Rome on a pilgrimage. What he found disgusted him. 300 years after Christianity became the official religion of Rome, the gladiatorial games were still going. Thousands of people were still dying for entertainment. Telemachus decided to stop it. On New Year's Day, he walked into the Colosseum during an active match. He pushed through the crowd, climbed over the barrier, and ran onto the arena floor. He stood between two gladiators and begged them to stop fighting. The crowd fell silent. Then someone threw a stone. It hit Telemachus in the head. He stumbled but didn't fall. More stones followed. Within seconds, the entire arena was throwing anything they could find. Rocks, bottles, pieces of seats. Telemachus raised his arms to protect his face. He could see the faces of the people killing him. Families, children, ordinary Romans. 50,000 people who wanted their entertainment. The stoning lasted approximately 2 minutes. When it stopped, Telemachus was dead. His body lay in the center of the arena, surrounded by the same sand that had absorbed gladiator blood for centuries. But his death changed everything. His sacrifice ended 1,000 years of games. Emperor Honorius banned gladiatorial combat 3 months later. So far, you've seen gladiators die in combat. But the arena had something worse than swords. Evidence that survived 2,000 years. The arena wasn't the only killing ground. Case 5. Trident Skull, York, England. 2nd to 3rd century AD. In 2004, construction workers in York, England, discovered something unusual. Buried beneath a modern parking lot was an ancient Roman cemetery. But this wasn't a normal burial ground. Every skeleton belonged to a young man. Most showed signs of violent death. Many had been decapitated. Archaeologists realized they had found a gladiator graveyard. One skull stood out from the rest. It had 3 parallel holes punched through the bone, each hole approximately 1 inch in diameter, spaced exactly 2 inches apart. The pattern was unmistakable, a trident. Forensic analysis revealed the weapon had been driven through the skull from above, penetrating approximately 4 inches into the brain. The angle of entry suggested the victim was on the ground, looking up when the killing blow was struck. He would have seen the trident coming. Neurologists estimate he remained conscious for 2 to 3 seconds after impact, long enough to feel the metal entering his skull, long enough to hear the crowd's reaction, then nothing. We don't know his name. We don't know who killed him. We only know how he died, in front of a cheering crowd, executed by a weapon designed to entertain. His skeleton remained in that grave for nearly 2,000 years. Archaeologists found him in 2007. And then there were the ones we never identified. Case 6. Hammer Skull, Ephesus, Turkey. 2nd century AD. The gladiator cemetery in Ephesus told a different story. When archaeologists excavated the site in the early 2000s, they found dozens of skeletons, all young men, all showing signs of combat injuries. But one detail appeared across multiple remains: square-shaped holes in the skull. The wounds were too uniform to be from weapons used in combat. Each hole measured approximately 1.5 inches across, with clean edges that suggested a single, powerful blow from directly above. These weren't battle wounds, they were executions. Roman gladiatorial combat had a brutal tradition. When a fighter was defeated but still alive, the crowd would decide his fate. If they wanted death, an executioner would step forward with a heavy hammer. The defeated gladiator would lie face down on the arena floor. He knew what was coming. He would hear the executioner's footsteps approaching. He would feel the shadow blocking the sun. He would have approximately 3 seconds to contemplate his death before the hammer fell. The blow was designed to kill instantly, a direct strike to the base of the skull, crushing the brainstem. But the evidence suggests not everyone died immediately. Some skulls showed multiple impact points. Some victims had raised their hands to protect themselves. They had seen the hammer coming. The hammer was found still embedded. But all of these were individuals. What came next was mass murder. Case 7. Appian Way Crucifixions, via Appia, Italy. 71 BC. Remember Crixus? His rebellion failed. But Spartacus fought on for another year. When the Romans finally crushed the slave revolt, 6,000 survivors were captured alive. General Crassus had a message to send. He ordered every single prisoner crucified along the Appian Way, the main road leading into Rome. The executions took days. Soldiers worked in shifts, nailing men to wooden crosses spaced approximately 35 yards apart. The line of crosses stretched for 130 miles. Crucifixion is not a quick death. The victim's body weight slowly compresses the chest, making each breath harder than the last. To inhale, they must push up against the nails in their feet. The cycle continues until exhaustion takes over. Death typically came from suffocation, but it could take anywhere from 6 hours to 3 days. For those 6,000 men, there was no escape, no rescue, no mercy. They hung on those crosses watching the person next to them die, knowing they would be next. Romans traveling the Appian Way would have walked past bodies in every stage of death, some still screaming, some already gone, some being eaten by birds. The crosses remained, standing for years. A reminder, a warning, a monument to what happened when slaves tried to escape their role as entertainment. 6,000 bodies lined the road for miles. The Colosseum is gone. The gladiators are dust. But the appetite for blood never left. We just moved it to boxing rings where fighters die for paychecks, to comment sections where we destroy people for entertainment, to viral videos of real violence that we watch, share, and forget. The arena changed. The crowd didn't. If you want to see what else humans have done to each other, subscribe.